turn. The first thing I want to talk about, just because it's fresh in the news right now, is the Supreme Court's decision upholding Trump's travel ban, which of course leads into a discussion of immigration. I know that's one of the issues you care a lot about based upon what we've seen on Twitter over the weekend.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that when we return with Steve Carlson, running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat, supporter of Donald Trump, 651-989-5855. Closing argument. My name's Walter Hudson, Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130, 103.5 FM, TwinCitiesNewsTalk.com. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a 5-4 ruling, upheld President Donald Trump's restriction on travel to the United States from a handful of Muslim-majority countries on Tuesday, giving the White House its first high court victory on the merits of a presidential initiative. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, made it clear that the court viewed the ability to regulate immigration as squarely within the president's powers, and he rejected critics' claim of anti-Muslim bias. We express no view on the soundness of the policy, Roberts wrote. In other words, they're not making a value judgment as to whether or not the policy is good. They're just saying that this is, in fact, something that the president gets to do. After a series of federal court rulings invalidated or scaled back earlier versions of the travel ban, the decision is a big win for the administration and ends 15 months of legal battles over a key part of Trump's immigration policy, which opponents attacked as a dressed-up form of the Muslim ban that Trump promised during his 2016 campaign. Closing argument. My name's Walter Hudson. Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130, 103.5 FM, 651-989-5855, the number to join us. That story comes to us from NBC News. We have in studio with us Steve Carlson, a candidate for U.S. Senate, running as a Democrat who happens to have views on immigration that are much more in line with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, than you might expect from somebody who's running for office as a Democrat. Your reaction, Mr. Carlson, to this ruling by the Supreme Court?
Well, I think it was pretty much a non-ruling. As you say, they didn't pass on the policy. They shouldn't pass on the policy. Now, if you look at how this all started, one Sally Q. Yates, who was let go, I guess, by the city of Minneapolis this week. They were going to have her study ketamine, I think, and that was stopped, and I'm glad. But she actually, when she took over as the Attorney General, directed attorneys for the Department of Justice not to appear, not to defend that executive order. And I thought that was atrocious because I think they are for national security. And this is a big problem that I see with a lot of attorneys general, where they're being very selective on what they're going to do. I never thought this was a Muslim ban, and it isn't a Muslim ban. The problem that we have is that people are trying to get into the country for the wrong reasons. And I think that we need a president who focuses on that, because we have to stop.
What would you characterize as a wrong reason for wanting to get in the country?
Basically, because of ideology that they want to carry out violence or overthrow the government. And because part of it is growing out of the war. Possibly, famine, refugee situations, the very bad situations that we need to look at and help them on the ground there. Third countries working on the ground with NGOs and things like this, trying to bring peace, and I think work internationally. So really, we need to solve the situation. But until that time, we have a lot of people that are going to Europe and coming to the United States to carry out violence. I mean, we had a person, and people might say he snapped, but he stabbed 11 people.
You're talking about the St. Cloud.
Yeah, in St. Cloud.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous to have a governor that says that if you don't like it, you should leave the state, and that is because of your behavior. I mean, and so this first judge who did this out in Washington was obviously ridiculous. He said, well, I know exactly why you're doing this. This is a very sound principle. I talked about this, by the way, I ran for president as well as independent, beginning in 2015, which is how I spotted Trump. And I saw that this is a very, very smart man. And the problem that we all saw then was especially the persecution of Christians. Okay, I mean, I never saw anything.
Are you talking about domestically or overseas?
Overseas.
Okay.
This is where we don't want the people coming from. And so what they would do, I'm talking about people who were killing off these Christians. It was, and some Muslims too. They were slaughtering some Muslims, Kurds. They were all targets. And this was a so-called ISIS thing. And Donald Trump says we have to help these Christians to get away from this because they're being persecuted because they're Christians. And so people said, oh, that's a religious test. Well, no, it isn't. The religious test was they were being targeted and killed. Their kids were killed, wives were, they were, the usual burning and pillaging kind of thing. And I'm glad that we started to vet for that. And I believe that some of those countries have been taken out of that status already, and the vetting is working. And I think it's going to go on to work. I think Donald Trump has made it very clear he's not anti-Muslim. Okay. We all recognize that there are a lot of people who are abhorred by this, and very often they're the target of it too. But it is apparently part of the Quran and some of the other religious writings that you're supposed to kill people of other religions, exactly what Carlson was saying.
We need to go to a break, but when we come back, I want to get into, because we're kind of starting to conflate immigration with the question of Islam itself. And I understand that they're related in this instance with the travel ban. Right. But I want to go a little bit more into detail regarding some of the underlying legal and moral arguments surrounding the travel ban. And then maybe we can transition into talk more about the Islam stuff as well. Steve Carlson, candidate for U.S.